Hey, this is C&D channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 28, Teixeira versus Bader. I'll also like to give a shout out to my friend's company, Born to Fight Kimonos. Check out their Facebook page if you want like gi or any other type of fight gear. Born to Fight Kimonos. Overall, I did pretty good with the picks, finally. 8 out of 11. I missed 3 of them. Missed Orantes versus Souza, Hallman versus Tronado, and Spencer versus Villafort. As far as bonuses go, Glover Teixeira got knockout of the night. I don't know how to pronounce his name. A lot of people are pronouncing it differently. I'll say Poter, I guess. Poter Hallman got submission of the night. And Rafael Natal versus Thor Trang, I think it's pronounced that, picked up Fight of the Night honors. Just say, man, it's hard to pronounce a lot of these guys' names on this card. Like this particular one, really tough. As far as the fight card goes, definitely a great, a really good main card with a very like alright undercard, alright at best undercard. I mean, Lucas Martin's finish over Ramiro Hernandez was really good, but a lot of the other fights weren't too great. I mean, Spencer Villafort wasn't too bad. I like what I see from some of these guys, like Elias Silverio. I think that guy has some potential, for sure. Edmilson Souza, I don't know. His ground game doesn't look that strong to me. But otherwise, yeah, let's just get started. Glover Teixeira beat Ryan Bader by TKO in the first round. So it was announced that Glover Teixeira will get the winner of John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson. I mean, the fact of the matter is Glover did not look that great. Did not look too great in this fight. You know, he was getting hit. He did get dropped momentarily. Bader, flawed as he is, instead of throwing combinations against the fence, wings overhand rights, and then goes for an uppercut with the same arm. I mean, these aren't combinations. He's just like winging punches. Gets countered, dropped, follow up ground and pound, and it's over for Teixeira. It's over for Bader. But yeah, this fight didn't show me, or show a lot of people, that Teixeira is gonna have too much, especially against John Jones. You know what though? At the same time, it's John Jones. You know what I mean? He's just like what, the pound for pound best fighter on the planet right now, and so far ahead of his contemporaries. You know, there's some arguments of like, oh, Glover should fight a top 5 light heavyweight before getting title shot. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, the only 2 guys that are in contention would be like Phil Davis and Glover Teixeira, really. Machida's going down to middleweight. No one wants to see a fight. No one really wants to see Evans versus Jones 2. Dan Henderson has 2 losses in a row now. I mean, and he's fighting Vitor anyway. So it's just one of those things where it's like, it's really slim pickings as far as contenders for John, or for the winner of Jones versus Gustafsson. It'll probably be Jones. I'll probably win that one. So you kind of 5-fight win streak in the UFC, 20-fight win streak overall. 4 of those 5 fights ended in a finish. I mean, you kind of got to give it to this guy. You know, the problem with Teixeira is he's such an in-fighter. But he forces his way inside and throws his hooks. You know, not the best defensively a lot of times. I mean, you know, I think Bader threw like 1 or 2 jabs, and you couldn't really get past that jab, you know. But you know, to Glover's credit, you know, his striking is solid when he's in the inside. offensively, you know. Defensively, he can use a lot of work. His wrestling's not that bad, and he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I mean, he really is one of the more well-rounded light heavyweights out there, you know, and he does have power in his strikes. So, I mean, I don't think, especially if he goes up against Jones, I don't think that he beats Jones. I don't think anyone beats Jones, really. And even Gustafsson, I'd kind of give the advantage to Gustafsson if Gustafsson manages to beat Jones somehow. You know, that leaves Ryan Bader. What happens to this guy? You know, he's just a perennial fringe top 10 guy. I mean, almost a gatekeeper in a sense, or like he's kind of like just that guy that can't beat the elite of the division. I mean, lost to Jones, Machida, Teixeira, and the weird one was Tito Ortiz. It's like, how did he lose to Tito? You know, but he did, and he got finished in the first round. You know, that was a great win for Tito too, I gotta say. You know, but yeah, you know, I mean, this guy is just gonna stay around that like number 10, 8, 9, 10, you know, maybe even more 11 to 15. The division isn't that strong though, so he could actually move further up the division. As far as he should fight next, I mean, he's coming off a loss. I mean, you can give him a Phil Davis if you want, who is coming off a win, even though most people think he lost. I think you want to kind of rebuild Bader as well. Maybe someone more mid-tier. Jeez, you know, the winner of what, or the loser of like Jimmo versus Manoa. There we go, or someone like that. You know, he's kind of around that area. You know, like a little bit above those two, but like below a lot of the top 10 guys, which is crazy because he actually beat Nogueira, and then he beat Rampage. Not in a great way, you know, he kind of just wrestled his way to victory for the most part. So, you know, it's just, there's certain guys that Bader can beat. I think Bader would be able to beat Shogun, for example, at this point of the game. Shogun just hasn't looked that good. I think he loses to a lot of other guys, though, in the division. Okay, next right after that, Renato Jacare Souza beat Yushin Thunder Okami by TKO in the first round. Now, let's not hail Jacare as this K1 striker, but you gotta say, he's made big strides in his striking. And it shows, you know. His accuracy is a little better. He hits hard. You know, got a strong right hand. Pushes forward a lot more. Doesn't seems more like comfortable and confident just in his hands, you know. Whereas he used to be just a jiu-jitsu guy. Now, you know, definitely one of the more well-rounded guys of the Division 2s. You know, his striking's improving. He's a very underrated wrestler. You know, he has a judo black belt, but his overall wrestling's really good. And of course, he's one of the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners in the world. And he beat Okami in the first round. I don't know who has done that. Anderson beat him in the second. Bosch beat him in the third. Franklin got a decision on him. I mean, I think Jacare is the first guy to do that to Okami. You know, who do you give Jacare next? I mean, it's clear that this guy is a good special talent, top 5 middleweight, arguably. Yeah, he beat a really tough, you know. Okami doesn't have the best chin, but man, is he good at stifling guys' offense. And he just could not do that to Jacare. I mean, it just better stand up. A guy that can probably handle himself pretty well in the clinch. Handle himself well if it goes to the ground. It's not a great stylistic matchup for Okami. You know, I think Souza versus Vitor Belfort, win or lose against Dan Henderson, because I don't think Dan Henderson would go down to 185. Would be a really good fight. The winner of Michael Bisping versus Mark Munoz would be another good fight for him. I mean, there's also like Costa Philippou, the winner of Philippou versus Carmon wouldn't be the worst fight. It's kind of a step down, but it is still within the top 10. The winner of Rockhold versus Bosch, because he definitely has some unfinished business with Luke Rockhold as well. And if you really want to do it, I mean, if Chris Weidman does beat Anderson Silva, you know, Weidman versus Souza would not be the worst fight out there. I mean, stylistically, I think that's a really interesting fight. Okami, you know, I mean, at this point, I don't think anyone had any real thoughts that he'd ever challenge for the title again or anything like that. And he's still a firmly entrenched top 10 guy. You know, he's fought a lot of the middleweights out there already, though. He's fought Boach. Yeah, he hasn't fought Bisping. He fought Munoz and beat him. He hasn't fought Vitor. I mean, I would give him someone in the top 10 again. He beat Lombard, you know, who isn't like a top 10 middleweight anymore, but, you know. So, yeah, I mean, he's still good middleweight. I think he should fight more guys within the top 10. Probably like the loser of Philippou versus Carmon, for example. But yeah, you know, he's just gonna be that guy that's probably gonna stay in the top 10 for a long time. You know, I mean, he is kind of on the down of his career. It looks like, and his chin is not getting any better. But he's still really good at stifling guys' offense, of bullying the clinch, big for the weight class. You know. Next fight, that Joseph Benavidez beat Hussier Formiga by TKO in the first round. Man, Dwayne Bang Ludwig, man, what he does for his fighters, it's just, the alpha male guys are just terrorizing all of their opposition, really. Joseph Benavidez should quite honestly be getting a title, you know, a rematch against Johnson. I don't really see who else he should fight. I mean, I guess you can give him the winner of Dodson versus Montague. Otherwise, he beat Uncle Creepy, you know. He beat Urushitani. He beat Uyeno Yama, and he knocked out a lot of these guys. Formiga, top 10 guy, you know. He should probably get a title shot now. I don't really see why not. I just don't think there's a point not to. You know, fun fighter to watch. He does finish his opponents, well-rounded. You know, interesting personality. I mean, guy's got jiu-jitsu after all. So yeah, I think Benavidez should be getting a title shot next. Formiga though, you know, he was doing alright on the feet for a while, but you know, he was at one time like the top flyweight in the world. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of guys that are much better strikers than him that can defend his takedowns. You know, if the guy has your back, you're done. But otherwise, and if you get you to the ground, you know, you could be in trouble. But, you know, stylistically, he'll match up good with some guys and won't match up great with others. As far as who you should fight next, maybe the loser of Harris versus Lineker. Jeez, who else is fighting? Fundy Formiga versus Marcos Vinicius. If they decide to keep Vinicius, I guess that makes sense. I mean, I could see him stay in the top 10, but, you know, like I said, there's a lot of guys out there that could probably hurt him in the stand-up. Another one would be John Moraga versus Formiga. Wouldn't be too bad either. John Moraga versus Benavidez actually wouldn't be a bad fight, now that I think about it. But yeah, I think Benavidez though should get a title shot. Okay, next round at that, Porter Hallman beat Francisco Masaranduba Trinado by Kimura in the second round. Big surprise for me, actually. I was firmly behind Trinado. I thought this was I thought this was all Trinaldo, and Hallman just gutted through that first round, managed to get a, I think he was fading Trinaldo, take him down, submit him. Trinaldo's hitting those really good body kicks that dropped Hallman at one time. He was doing well to stand up, but Hallman was in his face the whole time. Interesting prospect here, It's hard to say what his ceiling is, but man, I look pretty highly on Masvidal, to be honest with you, as a good mid-level gatekeeper type guy. He's just a really tough guy to deal with. He's huge for the weight class. He can bully you to takedowns. Stand-up's not too bad. He has a lot of power. So this is a great first win for a guy who made his UFC debut. I'm curious to see what how he looks in his following fights. I'm pretty surprised actually that he managed to submit Masvidal. As far as these guys should fight just more lower to mid, just more mid-tier guys. I can't really say a specific opponent. You got a new prospect in division, just built, more mid-tier. Give him the Sam Stouts, the John McDessie's, the Thiago Tavares's, just those type of guys. Trinaldo can fight around that level too as well. Okay, next right after that, Rafael Natal beat Thor Trang by unanimous decision. Fight night here, great scrambling, man. Oh man, the half guard sweeps and whatnot. Beautiful stuff here. You gotta say with Trang too, man, that guy got dropped by those right hands. The one in the second round, I thought was gonna finish him, man. The way he fell, his brains were scrambled. I think Natal's actually on a win streak now. He lost to Andrew Craig, and I think he's on a 3-fight win streak. Spencer, Zeffirino, and Trang, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of weird with Natal because he's good, but he's flawed too, But he's showing a little more consistency now. His ground game's always going to be really formidable. He does hit hard. He can brawl, and he does have cardio issues at times. But when he's on, he's a pretty good fighter, a good solid fighter. But a lot of times you don't see his best. A great scrambler. Really good at sweeps. He's definitely a jiu-jitsu black belt, and Thor was just with him the whole time on the ground. You sweep me, I'll sweep you type of deal, In the stand-up, though, Natal's a little too much for him. Natal should be getting a step up in competition now. He's on a win streak. Just give him the winner of Chris Camozzi versus Lawrence Larkin. I think that'd be a pretty cool fight. Geez, who else is in the division? And the division actually has a lot of guys. It has 60 fighters, and I can't think of one. That's sad. Jeez, what other fight? But yeah, he definitely needs a step up in competition, and with Thor, just more lower to mid-tier guys at the division. Okay, next fight after that, Ali Bagautanov beat Marcos Vinicius by TKO in the third round. Keeping an eye out for this guy, Ali, man. It's crazy. Vino looked like he was 2 weight classes above Ali. Didn't matter, man. Ali's counter striking was on point. His right hand almost always found its mark, and he's a good wrestler as well. He did have some problems when Vina took his back. Otherwise, his cardio also looked good too. He knocked the guy out in the third round. I like what I see from this guy. I think he's a prospect to look out for. I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for him. He seems to have the full package of striking, wrestling. He did get his back taken, but he does have that Sambo background, it's not like he can't fight on the ground or anything like that. When you find a much bigger guy, and knocked him out. Vina, I believe, I want to say he has a record in the UFC of getting knocked out in 3 different weight classes in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. In featherweight, who has he lost in featherweight? See, he beat Wagner Campos, and I think he lost to someone, I forgot who. Or maybe it was in Tough Brazil. And then he got knocked out by Johnny Bedford in bantamweight. And then he got knocked out by Ali Bagautinov in flyweight. And he's a huge flyweight. He might stick around in the UFC. He's not a bad fighter by any stretch. But, you know, he's just kind of like this solid mid to like lower tier fighter. And if they keep him, just give him more like lower to mid tier fighters. Okay, on to the prelims. Edmilson Souza beat Felipe Arantes by split decision. Good win for Souza. I'm actually really high on Arantes, and this is a really good one. He's tall and lanky, and he does throw jabs and straight punches. As a prospect, there are some things that are concerning about him. He does keep his hands low, which does work for him. He does slit punches and whatnot. But you got to see in this fight, his ground game needs a lot of work. His takedown defense wasn't too bad, but yeah, his ground definitely needs a lot of work. We'll see what happens with him, though. You know, he's still relatively new in the UFC, still a prospect. I think. Well, I have to check it in. I gotta check his age. I know one of these guys is actually a bit older. I don't think it's Souza, actually. So we'll see what happens. Really solid win. You get, like I said, I'm pretty high on Arantes because he does have a good ground game. And his stand-up isn't that bad either. And, you know, Arantes just didn't have much. He couldn't really get inside too much. His kicking game was doing pretty well. When he did take him down, I believe at the end of the first, I mean, he managed to mount the guy. You know, it looks like he's trying to break his arm with a key lock, you know. But both these guys, just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. Okay, next fight after that, Lucas Martins beat Ramiro Hernandez by rear naked choke in the first round. You know, Martins actually was knocking dudes out as a lightweight. And, dude, he's knocking dudes out as a bantamweight now. Well, he choked him out, but, man, did he drop Hernandez, lock in that, first, you know, tried to lock it in standing and managed to drag him to the floor and put him out, you know. I'm a bit curious to see what happens with Martins because he is a good action fighter. All of his fights in the UFC have been relatively exciting. The one against Barboza I liked, even though he got knocked out. The one against Jeremy Larson was awesome, you know, sloppy but awesome. And this was a fun fight for as long as it lasted. You know, he didn't look particularly huge for the weight class or anything like that, but he does hit hard. He's working on his jiu-jitsu. His problem, though, is his stand-up defense is really bad. You know, this guy is very hittable. But otherwise, I'm curious to see. He's still an interesting prospect in bantamweight and a division that needs, quite honestly, needs prospects. Just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division for these two. And pretty much for the rest of the guys, more lower to mid-tier guys. There's no one particular opponent or two that I think are great next opponents for a lot of these guys. Just any lower to mid-tier guy would work. Next fight after that, Elias Silverio beat João Zeferino by unanimous decision. I gotta say, I actually liked what I saw from Elias Silverio. I liked his takedown defense and I liked his stand-up. You know, you know, he can definitely work a little more when he's on the ground, though. But otherwise, I liked what I saw. His takedown defense is really good. He's good at pummeling, actually. You know, a lot of guys just aren't good at doing that against the cage. But he was surprisingly very well adept at that, and which really made it just really hard for Zeffirino to get takedowns on him. He has a good chin too, so I'm actually going to keep an eye out for him. I think he's a pretty solid prospect. The fight wasn't great, but there are things in his arsenal and his toolbox that did impress me. I'm always impressed with guys that have good takedown defense, because it's definitely something just extremely necessary in the UFC, especially new guys, and especially like striking based guys too. So with João Zeffirino, this is 2 losses in a row. I don't really know if they need to keep him. Welterweight's a pretty big division. They got, I think it has either the most fighters in the UFC or the second most fighters in the UFC. So I expect Zeffirino to get cut. Well, so I'll keep an eye out for this guy. I think he has some promise. He's fight more lower to mid-tier guys in the division. Okay, next fight after that, Ivan George beat Keith Wisniewski by a unanimous decision. George was fighting at not his optimal weight class, and it showed, but he still managed to persevere. Not a great fight by any means. Had a really hard time getting takedowns on Wisniewski. And Keith was also hitting some pretty good knees on George until the 3rd round, and George was hitting good knees on Keith. So I'd like to see what he can do at 155. I know he's one of the older fighters that were fighting on the card. He's like 32, 33, something like that. So I can't really speak super well as far as his prospects in the UFC. Tough out at best, maybe mid-tier guy at best. But he should just fight more lower to mid-tier guys at a lower weight class. With Keith, I believe this is 3 fights, 3 losses in a row for him now. He should probably get cut. And finally, Sean Spencer beat Yuri Villafort by split decision. I'm pretty high. I was pretty high on Yuri Villafort as a prospect. His stand-up, while sloppy, isn't terrible. His ground game's really good. I think one of his biggest problems, and I've noticed it since he lost to Quinn Mulhern, is a very bad lack of game planning with his fights. I mean, his brawling with Nishan Burrell, even though Burrell, when the fight did hit the floor, Villafort had the advantage. Sean Spencer isn't great on the ground, and he did manage to get back to his feet and make it hard to get taken down. But nonetheless, the game plan, I feel, should have been to really try to take this fight more to the ground. I mean, Spencer, that's where Spencer won in the stand-up. I mean, you want to essentially ground a guy that's beating you up standing. I mean, but I noticed that with Villafort, there's some really bad game planning, in my opinion, with him. And quite honestly, it's one of the knocks I have against the Black Zone camp. I think the Black Zone camp really helps fighters with their striking, but a lot of other areas, I just don't see them helping fighters, to be perfectly honest with you. I think Yuri's probably going to get cut now. It's just 3 losses in a row for him. 2 losses, 1 in Strikeforce and 2 in the UFC. Sean Spencer, just more lower to mid-tier guys in the division. Okay, that's pretty much it for my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 28, Teixeira versus Bader. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.